All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to finish up putting our LED lights on our honeycomb wall and go from the plug all the way to the LED light, everything in between, the controller, the software, all of the different things to keep in mind as you're putting all of this together. We'll go over everything, like I said, from the outlet all the way to the LED. So today's video will be a follow-up from last week's video. So if you haven't seen that one, make sure that you watch that video. But if you're just interested in doing LED lights in general, everything that I'm saying today would work for doing any LED lights in general. And I'll leave a link below to the channel that I think is probably one of the better resources for WLED and LED in general, which is Resin Tech or Resin Chem Tech. And I'll leave a link to his channel below, but he has a ton of information on all of this stuff, why we use certain components, which ones are better than others, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you check out his channel as well. But in today's video, we'll go ahead and finish everything up. So if all that sounds good, then sit back and relax and I'll get everything ready. All right, so here we are. We have our plug that goes into the wall, and that has these three wires here. This is for the US, maybe slightly different if you're not in the US. This power supply will handle 110 all the way up to 240. So just look at the instructions in your country on how to do that. But essentially the black wire is going to go over here. The white wire is going to go here. And the green wire is going to go right here. And the good thing about the cord that I recommended on Amazon is everything is already stripped and ready to go. So we can put that right in there just like so. So the black, the white, and the green. And be sure to make sure this thing is unplugged. Do not plug and do all of this with this plugged into the wall. Do not plug this in for a really long time here, but definitely don't mess around with these wires while this is plugged in. That would be a big no-no there. All right, so the next thing that we'll look at is the LED controller, or the ESP 8266, which is this guy right here. All right, so the goal of this exercise will be to attach this little controller, whatever you want to call it, to one of these cookie boards, PCBs, whatever you want to call it. And essentially what these do is anything that's in the row, anything in these rows right here is always connected. So we can connect, the terminals of each of this controller and then be able to have access to each side, from there. These outside rails here are for the power, and we'll wire all of that together, and I'll show you how to put all this together. But I will say Resin Chem Tech has a really good video on how to do all of this that I could never do it justice. So if you want more information, then look at that. But essentially we're going to need to attach this to this and set it up to control our WLED lights. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is take this little controller and plug it into the computer and program it. So make sure this thing works before you go and solder it to the board. Ask me how I know to make sure about that. So let's go make sure that this thing actually works, and then we'll mount it onto the board. All right, so once you've plugged in your 8266 into your computer, make sure you download any drivers or anything that show up, and then you're going to go to install.wled.me. And this is the website that you'll come to. You'll want to hit this install button. You'll see that it shows, all of your serial ports that are there. If you want to know which one is the one that your controller is on, just unplug it and plug it back in, and you'll see that it went away and it came back. If you don't see that when you do that, then you have a driver issue and you need to fix the drivers on that. So we'll go ahead and select COM3 and hit connect. And then we'll install WLED. All data on the device will be erased. That's fine. And we'll hit the install button and we'll let that install. All right, and we'll see that installation is complete. And now we'll configure the Wi-Fi. So let me blur this out. And now we can visit the device and just pay attention to the URL that's up here, or the IP address that's up here. So this is the standard one with 164. So anytime I want to go back into this user interface and control anything on here, then I can just go to 192.168.0.164. So once we are here, we have connected to this wirelessly over the network. Everything is working good. We see everything has loaded up and seems to be working. So now let's go ahead and finish wiring this up to the board. So do make sure that this is working before you solder everything together, because I did have a bad one and I did do that and it was a giant waste of time. So make sure that this works before you solder anything together. So now let's get into how we connect it to the board and get it connected to our LED strip. All right, so when putting this together, there's a bunch of these little different pins that are in there. You can use whatever you feel is necessary, but for this one, I found that these little ones here, you know, there's a long side and a short side on there. I put the short side in here, and then solder it down. And what makes it really easy is what's called a breadboard. So you can put both of these on each side and then mount it on this board so it holds it while you solder everything down. And that makes it super easy to do this, and I would highly recommend it. And the same thing for the logic level shifter. We'll see that it comes with the same type of pins, and use this breadboard to do the same thing. And I like to leave the long ones going down and the short one going into the board itself. Couple of other tricks is use a flux pin to make this a little bit easier. This isn't going to be a soldering tutorial, so I'm not going to show you all how to solder, but you do need to get these two pin things mounted to both the board as well as the logic level shifter. All right, and once you get that done, then we can mount it to the board itself. And let me go over everything that's going on here. So you will see that the board is oriented with the USB out this way, and this little antenna is up. Okay, so the USB piece is down and to the back, and this little antenna is up. And pay attention to which direction this logic level shifter is. And I'll do a close-up right here, and you may want to snap a screenshot or pause this. This is the correct orientation for everything. And where all the wires go. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, so these three lines go to our LED strip. And you'll see that we have the negative feeds this rail, the positive feeds this rail, and then everything is connected to there, and our signal is right here. Okay, so what's going on is we're feeding power to this from the positive into there, negative into this second terminal right here. And then we're taking the signal from this first signal here over to the logic level shifter, which is providing 5 volts to the signal out. This is the 3 volt that is coming up. I made a common ground, and this 3 volt is fed into here to make 5 volts. I don't know exactly how all of that works, but what this does is makes it so this signal can go a lot further. If you don't do this part and just plug directly into here, which you can totally do, and you can just plug these 3 wires directly in there, and that's totally fine, it just won't run a longer distance. So if you have a long distance to go or something like that, this logic level shifter shifts this from 3 volts to 5 volts so that it'll go further along the line as such. So now let's look at the LED strip and how we plug into all of this. All right, so out of the box, the LED strip comes with all of these connectors here. This connector should be connected to your board, right? And have this plug coming from your board. On the LED side, right, this plugs in, and that's where the signal and everything comes. If I can get it. That's where the signal and everything from the board comes in. But we don't actually power it from the board, which you can, but again, it won't go long distances, and for a lot of LEDs, you don't want to do that. We're actually going to get the power from the LED strip in a roundabout way through this power injector. So each of the LED strips at the very beginning, it's already done for you, has this power injector. And that's what we plug into our power supply. So on our power supply, we're going to want to put the red on the positive and the white on the negative, which these 3 lines are positive and these 3 are negative. So you could actually have 3 separate lines, you know, going and feeding this power injector. So you could actually have 3 of these boards with 3 separate things going on, all from this one power supply. And it may be overkill for a small project, but when you think about that, now I can add lights to my drawers, to my shelves, to all of the stuff, and run it all off of this power supply and just make new boards if you want to split everything up. I'm going to run all the lights that you guys have seen on the bottom on the shelf there. We're just going to tap into that and move over to the flag and do that, but I'm going to power everything with power injection. So I'll just run a wire from this power supply in red on this side and then white on that, and that will actually feed power back to the board, and it'll feed everything in the board, and it'll feed all the power to the lights and everything all at once, and very, very clean. Again, you don't have to do it this way, but I just went through all the benefits of doing it this way. Now I can just make a small little box for my controller, and I just have these 3 wires going out. Super simple, involves a little bit of soldering, but it's pretty simple. Now let me go over one final thing that will help with doing the soldering on the board and putting this together. All right, so as you're putting this all together, it's very helpful to have a set of helping hands. And I have this set here, and I'll leave a link to it because it has these little rubberized feet on it. It makes it really easy to hold everything. Plus, it has this cool magnifying glass that I can use as I'm soldering. to make it a lot easier to see everything. So definitely get you these helping hands. It also has a light in here as well. These helping hands make all this soldering way easier. The other thing is, I mentioned this in the video before, but definitely get solid stranded wire. Whenever you're making these little jumpers and everything, if you use stranded wire, whenever you're trying to poke it into these little holes, the strands, it's really hard to get the strands and everything in there. So use solid core wire to make these little jumpers and everything, and it makes it way easier to solder everything. You just put it there, flip it over, and solder away, and it makes it so much easier with the solid core wire than with stranded wire. If all you have is stranded wire, do what you need to do with that. But if you can get solid core wire, definitely do that. It is a huge difference. All right, so instead of trying to film and show you all of this, I decided to just take a picture here and then show you what is going to happen. So the wire coming in to feed everything is going to be right here. And then there's 34 LEDs across this way. It jumps up 34 LEDs back this way. And remember that the arrow of the LEDs is going to face this way. The arrow of the LEDs is going to face this way. The arrow of the LEDs is going to face back this way. And then there's 23 LEDs here and 23 LEDs and so on and so forth. So this one will jump over, and then there'll be this section, then this section, then this section, then this one, and that one jumps back over here, and it'll end with these 23 LEDs right there. And it is important, right? Each one of these is going to be a section. Each one of these lines is going to be a section that we can edit later. These are regular PLA white, and these are those clear PETG covers here, because I want more light to shine through for the stars and everything. So we'll try to make this twinkle, and then obviously this one will be red. This will be just a normal white light, red light, white light, red light. So it looks kind of like a flag. We'll see what it looks like. It might be ugly. We never know. But we'll try it out. But that's the way that I'm going to do this. Now, I'm not going to glue or, peel back the tape and then stick all of these LEDs down and then try to solder up here on the wall. So what I did is measured out, all the strips that I need. And then I'm going to, solder the little jumper piece that I need to go from here to here, from here to here, and so on and so forth to all of these, and get that whole thing going. And then I'll put it up on the wall and get all of the WLED and all of that stuff done. So let me go ahead and get all of this put in there, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So I want to give you guys some insights into what I'm going through with WLED and the 8266, and I'm actually going to have to cut this week's video short, even though it is out late, but I am unable to get one of these 8266s to work with WLED. And I gotta tell you, I have some major issues with this software and possibly with the 8266. I'll try to get an ESP32 and try this again, but this thing will not stay connected to the internet. Even though I have it plugged into the computer, it will only interface with this over Wi-Fi. And I guess the Wi-Fi is really bad, but every time I have put out these segments on the first pre-build one that I had, and it did this so many times, it fried that thing, and it doesn't even turn on anymore. I got a second one, I did the same thing. I did all of these, saved the presets and all of that, and fried that one too. It just did this connection and unconnect, reconnect, unconnect, reconnect so many times that it just will not interface with it. This is actually the fourth one that you guys are looking at right now, and I would have had my video out on time if the first, second, or third one would have worked. But the fourth one, again, as soon as I try to add segments, connection failed. It can't stay connected to the internet. And again, I'm plugged into my computer. I should just be able to upload stuff. And that's another thing that I want to bring up. Yeah, this thing is totally froze. Let me get it unfroze and see if we can actually interface with it. As you can see, bricked because I tried to add 3 segments onto this thing. So sorry if I recommended the D1. I would not recommend that one. I'm having major issues with the ones that I bought off of Amazon there. So I will do some research into some more ESP devices that can work with WLED. And once I get that done, we can actually light up all of my LEDs. I have those all installed, and I had it working for a brief second before it fried the first one, and it did look really cool. But as you can see, I have no idea what's wrong with these things. This one is less than 30 minutes old. I haven't even soldered on it. I just plugged it into the computer, installed WLED, added 3 segments, and decided to hit the record button so you guys could see what I can see. So sorry, this week's video is a fail, but you do know what not to buy now, and we'll have a part 3 to this video coming out shortly. Be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe if you want to see me fail some more, and I'll see everybody on next week's video. Bye, everybody. Thank you.